Hello and welcome back to TWTV for another video verdict outside the home of Ipswich Town, Portman Road, where we've just witnessed another game in the Premier League for Ipswich Town, as maybe their battle to survive has finally ended. And I'm joined by TWTD writer Kallum Brisset. Kallum, welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
The joy of Wednesday night has evaporated. A game where we had a glimmer of hope. We were holding on by a thread, but we'd given ourselves a bit of hope in what was a really strong performance at Bournemouth. There was a lot of energy, a lot of fight, and also some quality. But today I felt like the gap really was exposed between, a championship side that had come up quite quickly and a side that had been up there for a while, having multiple transfer windows and buying a lot of very strong players. Take us through your kind of view of the game and talk us through what happened between those two halves, please.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the two halves because we deserved absolutely nothing after that second half performance. First half I thought was pretty good. Obviously we go into it 1-0 up. I thought there wasn't a lot in it between the two sides. We started with good energy. Really started on the front foot. Had most of the territory. Had a few good chances. Got the goal from Delap, which was all going pretty well. A bit of a moment of madness with the indirect free kick, but kind of got away with one there. Alex Palmer will be very relieved, I'm sure.
I've never seen anything like that before.
No,
It was directly in front of me, and it was quite the scene.
It's very rare.
How far out were they? Not far at all. We had every of our players lined up on the line, but we did well to block it, and that was a bit of a good moment for the North Stand and the crowd in general.
We did, and then by the time we get into the second half, I don't know what changed. I don't know whether it was something that Wolves had changed at half time. Didn't look like anything in particular. The biggest thing that I noticed was that we were just dropping way too deep. And when you drop that deep, you're going to invite the pressure. We're not going to survive for 45 minutes. I'm surprised we survived for as long as we did, because I thought they really should have scored before they did get the equaliser. And when the equaliser goes in, it's so difficult to flip that momentum. The momentum's all going to be with the away side in a game that we have to go and win. 1-1 certainly wouldn't have done for us. And from then on, if there was going to be a third goal, it was never going to be Ipswich Town. It was always going to be Wolves, and they did get it, and then it became a really flat end.
Yeah, again, quite a lot of VAR in that, slowed it down quite a bit. We had their second goal, the winning goal, significant delay on VAR there, and it did
looked offside. I mean, I haven't seen the full. I've just seen kind of the video in the ground, but it looked pretty close. But listen, we weren't going to go on and win that game, and if we didn't win today, it doesn't really matter. So, I'm not going to complain about that decision.
Yeah. I mean, I think just unpack some of those things. Yeah, you're right. It was a game, classic cliche, game of two halves. I thought the first half they kicked in on about 10 minutes, didn't they, Wolves? And you started to see some of the quality, and we were feeling it a bit. Gomez, their number 8, what a player! Streets ahead of a lot of the players that we've got in our team. But they had that 10-minute spell. Around 10 minutes, they had a really good patch, didn't they? But then we came back into the game, and we were doing well. I think. Building on Wednesday night, I thought the fullbacks started the first half well. Johnson and Townsend were playing well. Caduce was having good moments. Shea and Burgess was strong. Obviously, Palmer had the error, but apart from that, he was quite solid. I thought Morsey was a little bit lost at times, but for me, the issue in the first half perhaps was that Enciso and Broadhead weren't as good as down at AFC Bournemouth. Why was that? Was that better marking against them, or they weren't quite as on good form, do you think?
Maybe they were trying too much, maybe. I think that's something that we've said about Enciso in his time here. When it works, it's great. He wriggled in and out of 2, 3, 4, 5 Bournemouth players in midweek and set the goal up. Didn't quite happen for him, but I thought he was looking to make things happen, and I can't really knock him for that.
I mean, he had that moment again. The sort of one of the traits or negative things we've had in this season is he was breaking up on the left side, wasn't he? And he just held on to it too long. He could have put Delap through, and we've got to eradicate that. And down at Bournemouth again, Enciso became effective, and he just wasn't there. But let's talk about Wolves. I think they just seem to be physically much stronger than us. There was more energy, especially in the second half. But it kind of showed that we're maybe a little bit of a lightweight team. Kallum, what do you think about that?
I think we've said this for a lot of the season. The amount of teams that have come down here, and I'd probably go as far to say, especially in the second half, they bullied us in terms of their physical strength, in terms of winning the second balls. There was a period in the first half where they won 3, 4, maybe even 5 corners in succession. and you thought it was only a matter of time before one of these goes in. Somehow got away with it, but I think it was a sign of kind of that what was to come in terms of that physical effect. But I mean, in that second half, I mentioned it earlier, we couldn't get into the game physically because we weren't high enough. We were way too deep.
It seemed to be a combination of being too deep and also a bit of a lack of energy, and I think a bit of fear crept in as well. Do you think there's a mind game in there?
Yeah, and then by the time, I mean, then you get question marks over whether you make the substitutes. The substitutes came very late again. All four came on in one burst, and they didn't make us any better at all. There were a couple of them in particular. I mean, I don't want to single any out, but Philogene was on the pitch for 10 minutes, and
yeah,
it was a pretty poor 10 minutes.
Around me and J Block, you know, he looked lightweight. You know, we talked about
so
the fact
lightweight.
The fact
he wasn't
that
up for it. He was afraid to put a tackle in.
He looked quite scared of the physical side of the game. Let's just pause and he just take us through. Well, let's just talk about the lineup. We'll bring it up on screen. Just to talk us through the lineup.
The lineup was unchanged from midweek, and I was pretty pleased with the lineup. I know a lot of other people were as well. In terms of the starting 11, the system was the same. It was in Ciso kind of off the left, Broadhead kind of in the middle, kind of the right 10 as it were. And it looked like we were set up pretty much as we did on Wednesday night. It was certainly a back four, it wasn't a back five. Johnson was very high on the right. It was working to an extent in the first half. I don't think it was a problem with the system, or particularly a problem with the personnel. I just thought the approach to the second half is where it all went wrong. All went wrong today, and I think that's something that
and I think
might be reflected on differently.
Yeah, I think we'd given ourselves a sort of glimmer of hope in some ways. But I think what I was seeing in that second half, I was sitting there going, there's no way Wolves are not going to go and get another 2 wins this season, because I just think they look quality, and I thought they had ideas, they had shape. There was a lot of patterns of play with Wolves, and I think we saw finally at Bournemouth some McKenna patterns of play, didn't we? But today we just didn't really have that. There wasn't enough out balls, there wasn't enough movement, and that's what we just got kind of overrun in the second half. Didn't we?
You knew Wolves were going to equalise at some point. As I said, they should have equalised beforehand. They had a few big chances. Obviously, the indirect free kick in the first half, and then early on in the second half, there were 2 or 3 big chances that they really should have done better. But we didn't learn from Wednesday night at Bournemouth. The approach to the second half there was positive, and we went and got that second goal. And I can't see why the approach looked so different today. I don't know whether it was something that Wolves did in terms of their own tactical change. They certainly looked more up for it in the second half. That's the one thing you hate saying as a football football supporter, is you hate to have to admit that the opposition just looked way more up for it.
I think
they did.
I think we've talked about what are the factors to win games in the Premier League, and obviously quality players is one of them. But I think you've got to have a strong, energetic press, and you've got to win the duels. It's a sort of like baseline. And I thought in the first half our press was good, and we were winning a number of the duels. Second half, we talked about Philogene earlier. Very lightweight, and we started to lose a lot of duels all over the pitch, and that you're never going to have a chance from there. Let's just pick out the ref actually, because the Wolves fans were getting absolutely irate with the referee. But I actually thought he had a good game. It was quite a physical game, but he was kind of letting it run a little bit, and because we were losing those duels, and and the game was lost.
I didn't massively notice him, which is a sign that he's had an okay game. I didn't think anything of it. In terms of the refereeing performance, it was a bitty game, especially in the first half.
But I thought a good first half. It was an entertaining game. Felt like it went on for ages. Let's come back to those subs. I think frustration for me and some of the people around me in J Block was, Enciso and Delap, for me, looked out on their feet. I thought Caduce was out on his feet a little bit. Maybe a hangover from Wednesday night, perhaps. We need to give him a bit of a credit to that they really put a shift in down on the south coast.
Then why aren't the subs earlier?
Yeah, I just thought it was like the subs were all, when they're line up in front of me, in front of the West End, and they're all looking to McKenna. When's the moment? It was Chaplin, Clark, Phillips, were all looking to him, and it didn't come till 82, I think, or around then. And to make, was it 4 subs they made?
Yes.
4 subs to then only have, I know there was 7 minutes of injury time, but to have that amount of time, it's a big amount of change, isn't it? Yeah. And I just didn't, as you said, you mentioned already you weren't impressed by the subs. Why weren't you impressed? What was going on with them?
I felt like the subs were maybe, there was an air of desperation about them. We moved Johnson, who we have been reluctant to play as a flat right back, into a flat right back. We dropped Taylor deep to get Chaplin in the 10. We kept kind of the front four with Taylor was everywhere. He was trying to do 3 players' jobs at one point, I think. And then we didn't see a lot of the ball in the last 10 minutes. It was a lot of kind of Wolves possession and you've got to have that fight to kind of win it back. And when you do win it back, you make sloppy touches. And there were way too many of those in the last 15 minutes, which were completely different to the first half.
Yeah, we're a bit headless, and the ideas had gone a little bit.
Whether we were the better team in the first half, I don't know. I'd say we probably edged it, but
it
was a completely different half to the way that the second half went. I don't remember a chance in front of the North Stand that we had. In the second half.
I think to sort of start to close out. Yeah, my view was if we'd managed to edge that second half with a bit of luck and got a 2-1 or sort of, or had held on for a 1-0, I'd have kind of felt, that was good, but this Wolves side are good and they're going to get points in the rest of the season. It made me realise, for me, that the gap is large. The gap between a side, as I said right at the start, have come up very quickly from the Championship and haven't bolstered with physical players and international players. It's too big a gap at the moment, and we need to go down, which we will now, and rebuild. Callum, let's close out by, we are relegated now. There's no way around it.
There can't be anyone watching with even the bluest tinted glasses.
I mean, my blue goggles are pretty thick, but they've gone.
I think the reality is we've known for a while that it's coming.
Yeah,
it's just had that glimmer of belief that win on Wednesday. Kind of thought, well, if we win today, it's gone. Yeah, all gone.
Yeah, well, I'll let you go and speak to Phil after this and get the view. I'll be very interested to see from Phil's view from the press box
to hear what McKenna
said, what the mood is in there. But let's end on the mood in the ground. I thought, the home fans and the atmosphere was pretty good in the first half. It was really good. There was a moment where there was some real noise. I thought the Wolves fans were good. But talk us through the sort of atmosphere towards the end in the second half.
I mean, first half I thought it was really good. I thought and the team fed off the crowd as well. I thought we started with, like I said earlier, with a lot of energy. But then kind of the second half, it went, as Wolves were probing, it was kind of the feeling in the stadium that continue to kind of play the way we are, and it is only a matter of time before the equaliser goes in. It did go in, and then it kind of petered to a bit of a flat end.
Yeah, I mean, almost like the North Stand and the wider crowd were like the barometer of the game. And in that first sort of 10 minutes, or the first 10 minutes, when we had a lot of ball, we didn't score, which is a bit of a trait of this season. We were lifting them. Then Wolves had that spell, but then I think Enciso did a really good tackle, didn't he, on the in front of the Cobalt stand. He was up for it. He wanted the crowd to go with him, and that fired us up. But it was all too little. And then, as you said, the summary of the game is we came out in the second half. There was something wrong with the setup, and there was something wrong with the energy, and the atmosphere dropped. Well, listen, Callum, not as happy a mood or as happy chat as we had on Wednesday, and the inevitability of our relegation is sort of setting in. But we'll leave it here from outside the West Ham Portman Road, and I'll leave you to go and speak to Phil and get a view of the press conferences. But thanks very much for your time.
No problem. See you at Chelsea.
Yeah, I'll see you at Chelsea. Look forward to it. Thanks so much for viewing in, and as always, please like and subscribe.
Welcome back to Portman Road, where we are joined by Phil Ham, fresh from the post-match press conference after that 2-1 defeat to Wolves.
I know.
At risk of repeating what Jim and I referenced earlier, we kind of saw it as a game that was quite even and a decent first half, and it all kind of went wrong after half time. Is that how you saw it?
Yeah. First half, I think we probably say we just about shaded it. Perhaps not a huge number of chances, not a huge number of open play chances. Certainly, I think probably the only really good open play chance was ours. Maybe Strand Larson had one, didn't he, that Alex Palmer saved, but their main threat was set pieces, wasn't it? Corners. And of course the back pass.
I was going to mention that. Have you ever seen that at Portman Road before?
I don't know that I have. I can't try to remember. But yes, I mean, you're talking probably 30 years, aren't you, since that rule came in, I think. And very, very rare. And yes, a very rare aberration from Alex Palmer, who's been a very solid keeper, hasn't he, since he's come in. And just one of those just straight under his foot. I mean, he reacted incredibly quickly, didn't he, to actually save it. And I think as the rule is, it was the right decision, wasn't it? And fortunately, Town, it was inevitable. It was Sam Horsey who was the one piling at the ball and blocking it. But and then at half time you thought, well, we're in a good position. But I think second half Wolves started strongly, and we never really got a foothold. I think we had a bit of a spell.
What do you think went wrong in that second half? Because I put it down to kind of I just thought we dropped way too deep. From the off.
Yeah, I think there could be something in that you kind of get into position when you're ahead. You kind of feel that you've got to defend your lead and perhaps not go for it in quite the same way as you would otherwise. I thought perhaps that the Bournemouth performance probably took it out of us a little bit. Kieran McKenna in his press conference made sort of similar reference to that. Thought that maybe that took it out of because it's only 3 days ago, isn't it? So that may have taken it out of players. At the same time, he said he didn't want to make substitutions too early because Wolves are such a big team. And I think perhaps referring to not wanting to bring off Liam Delap because his sort of role in defending set pieces but I think at the same time perhaps he might have looked at bringing off. I thought Broadhead was fairly ineffective today. Certainly second half. Yeah, second half we just didn't really get going, did we? We had a brief spell where I think there were a couple of Kayusta long throws from the right.
It's about all that it got though, wasn't it?
Yeah, and really the only chance we had in the second half was, I think it was in the sort of second phase after one of Kayusta's throws. He sent in a cross again, didn't he? And Dara O'Shea headed over. I think him and Cameron Burgess sort of got in one another's way a bit, didn't they? And other than that, and I think after that, really, it did seem a matter of time before Wolves were going to score. They hit the post, didn't they? There were shots blocked. There were a number of other opportunities, and when the goal came, you can't really say that it was a terrible shock. And really, from there was only one side that was going to get the game's third goal, and it was them. And after that, really, in the final kind of minutes, if anyone was going to score a goal, it was Wolves getting a third rather than us getting a second. Unfortunately, I think the sort of stuffing had been knocked out of us a little bit, and their danders were up, and they look like a side that are confident. I think it's their 4 wins in a row, something like that. And I think we talked beforehand, didn't we, about their form being only Liverpool and Arsenal having got more points than them since the beginning of February. I think actually now they've probably got more points than Arsenal since the beginning of February, because Arsenal drew. So that shows what sort of form they're in, and perhaps that the position that they've got themselves in. I think we talked at the beginning of the season about teams that we thought might get drawn into it, and Wolves, you in particular, saying you didn't think they'd be one that were in trouble, and obviously they had a poor start to the season.
They've proven to be the only one that have come close, and it feels like that has kind of evaporated away now at this point. I mean, you touched on McKenna's press conference there earlier. We know he's never get too high, never get too low. Was he a bit more downbeat today? Did he concede that it may well be over?
I think there's more than likely, I think was the phrase that he used, and that 12 points plus their goal difference, which is 17 now, better than ours, and 7 games to go. Yeah, I mean it's a kind of it's an impossible ask, particularly when we're playing Chelsea and Arsenal next. And as he said, Wolves. I mean that's kind of, we've got to make up 12 points, requiring Wolves to lose a significant number of matches, which they're probably not going to, because I think they're probably. I thought they're a better side than Bournemouth were in the week, and a better side than a lot of other teams that are higher up in the table than that we've played this season. So I think the dream is over, as they say, and it will be Championship football again next year. But you look at it. Obviously, the Premier League has clearly got a bit of a problem now, that the gap from the Championship to becoming an established Premier, or to surviving in the Premier League, is clearly tough. 3 teams last year, 3 teams this year, coming straight back down again.
That's a wider issue that I think will be we've still got stuff to talk about between now and the end of the season, so I'm sure that's something that we'll discuss. But in terms of linking back to the TWTD forum, just wanted to get your thoughts on some of these 3 words. Not enough fight was picked out. Is that
I don't think
it looks
fight.
like it's perhaps not something you agree with.
I don't think it's fight. I think kind of. I think just you face better teams in this division, and we ran out of steam a bit, and we let them get on top. And once they got their goal, I don't think there was much doubt which way the game was going to go. We might have held out for a draw, but it's a lot of. It's not dissimilar to a lot of games this season, is it? Where we've competed for a long spell, have maybe gone ahead, but ultimately been pegged back by opposition. I mean, Kieran cited the score of the first goal, Spanish international who came from PSG.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't got players like that on our bench. A lot of we talked about this. I'm trying to think where else we talked about this recently. Other teams have players that they bring off the bench. Bournemouth, for example, earlier in the season, weren't they? That are very, very stronger than we've been able to bring on throughout the season. So I don't. I start the kind of post-mortems of the season at this stage because we'll not have much to talk about in future after future matches. But I think the kind of illustration of that it's no disgrace is the fact that Southampton and Leicester were two teams that were Premier League teams only a year prior to this season have fared worse than us. So I think Kieran McKenna cited in his press conference 2 or 3 weeks ago that last season us keeping up with Southampton, Leicester and Leeds was seen as a major achievement. Well, this year we may be third from bottom and going down, but we have finished, we hope, but we are at the moment ahead of Leicester and Southampton, and I think most people would argue that we're probably the best of the three teams. But it's no consolation other than the fact that perhaps we're going to come down as the strongest of the three, probably the most together of the three clubs and squads, perhaps to some degree. I mean, it's difficult to say because you don't know who's going to leave in the summer, but you would think that the majority of our players would still be here. Manager probably still here. It's difficult to say at the moment, isn't it? Because you don't know what happens. I certainly don't think we'll have the same summer we did last year with the kind of jobs that he was linked with then. And we'll regroup and see how we fare in the Championship. And you would say that the squad, barring hatloads of players moving in the summer, which I think is unlikely, the squad that will be going into the Championship in August will be a stronger squad than left the Championship in May
without
last
a doubt.
year.
Without a doubt.
So you would anticipate a successful season, and the fact that Sheffield United and Burnley have done so well in that division this year, we could ignore Luton. Disappointing season, obviously. But when you look at the context and the division and how other teams in similar positions to us and have done, fairly. There's sort of almost an inevitability about it. It would have been a big ask for us to have survived, perhaps.
Yes.
Rather than it being a disgrace to go down, perhaps.
Yeah. And one more over and out, which I think.
Yeah, I think
pretty
that,
much is the general feeling that today's the day where I think even those who are the most optimistic of Town fans, it's kind of been trending this way for a long time, but it feels like that today's the day that
the final nail
it's done.
Went into the
it?
I think so. I think Bournemouth, the win at Bournemouth gave us a bit of confidence or hope that there was a kind of glimmer.
Kind of delayed this feeling by a few days, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think it kind of made today. It put more into today, didn't it? I think people turned up perhaps with more hope, and it was kind of it turned today into perhaps a bigger game than it had been if it had been 12 points already going today. I think it'd have been a bit after the Lord Mayor's show, but I think the next few games it's frustrating. We've got 7 more games where we've really not got much to play for, but unfortunately that is the way of things. And which is sort of as Kieran says, we're not going to go into any games any differently. We'll just sort of try and finish this season positively, get some positive results, and see where that takes us. Obviously, there is the kind of outlier and of whether Manchester City get fined a ludicrous number of points, which has been kind of suggested in various sources. But that's to see what the Premier League's independent inquiry has to say.
Yeah, well, over and out from the season, it would seem, and over and out from us.
Indeed.
For today, like you say, still 7 games to go. I'm sure we'll find plenty to talk about. Hopefully some more points to come between now and then, even if it doesn't mean that we will survive. But yes, we will see you next week. Stamford Bridge.
Stamford Bridge.
Another stadium that we haven't been to for a while. Another top club on this Premier League adventure.
Indeed. Well, last time I went to Stamford Bridge, we lost 7-0.
Yes.
So I think we'll do rather better than that.
Well,
one would hope.
Let's hope for that. We will see you at Stamford Bridge as ever. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.